We're live. So I know there's a delay.
Yep, a
Um,
link just appeared. 2 o'clock. Yep, here it is.
there we go. I can hear it.
Yeah, we're up and running.
Great. That's awesome. Well, we won't officially start for a couple more minutes and just give everybody a chance to come in and get settled, and we at least know that it's things are working so far, and which is pretty exciting because when they had Google Hangouts, that was the best. That was absolutely the best.
Hmm.
But Google turned that off. They weren't making enough money doing it. So StreamYards is a good alternative. My wife forced me to use it, which I'm very appreciative of her that
Yeah.
she made me get on here and mess with it and try it out. So
Well, I appreciate you inviting me to this. I've been looking for, culturally relevant issues to get involved with, to kind of merge,
sure.
my interests and hobbies, and not just, talk Torah, all day, every day, but to kind of, create a cultural phenomenon where we're talking about things that matter to people, things that might be educational or influential, and kind of be able to infuse ethics or Torah concepts.
Right. All the Torah, but also having the entertainment, the things that we actually enjoy about comics, and focusing on what it is that we enjoyed from a young age. I know when we talked earlier over Facebook, I think you and I are coming from very similar positions. We've collected since we were kids,
Right.
and we really latched on to something about comics that was, that really grabbed our imagination, and you know, it's something. It's a habit I've tried to kick in the past, but I've never been able to. I
Right.
always find myself, going back to it, and
Yeah.
I'm almost to the point where I won't watch movies unless it's like a comic theme movie. It's hard for me to get into. I just
Right.
can't get into most modern movies. But if someone's got is flying in the air and shooting laser beams, I can handle that. Well, hey, just turned nine p.m. here in Israel, and it's 2 o'clock there in Michigan where Brian is. My name is Hillel, and this is my YouTube channel, New Hero Comics, and this is Brian Stanek. Want to go ahead and introduce yourself, if you will?
Yeah, Brian, I'm up here near Kalamazoo, Michigan, comic book enthusiast, Noahide, and all around good guy.
That's right. Brian and I met each other through Facebook. We've known each other, for a few years through our posts. Thumb upping each other's a post, from time to time. And I was surprised. I put a notice in the one of the Noahide groups, and I said, "Is anybody here interested in comics?" And Abby suggested you, and I was like, "Oh, great!"
Right.
And, I was completely interested. I did not expect it at all that you were also a fellow comic book nerd. So I think what we're going to do is, if you notice, I've got a picture up here, and I'm going to be drawing while the two of us talk, and the and what I'm going to work on today is I have a group called Heaven Seven, and they're actually a group of B'nai Noach. It's a team of B'nai Noach, and they've gone through different iterations, but I'm looking forward to create a final look for them. Sky Sovereign, you saw him. Maybe I posted pictures of him up, and so I'm going for another member of the team. But I think today what we want to talk about is how did comics divert from what we knew them as when we were kids to versus today,
Hmm.
and I'm going to go ahead and jump on the drawing, and you can go ahead and just tell me what is it that you love so much about comics.
Right. So I guess my first impression as a kid was the artwork. Of course, I
Yeah.
was really impressed with the artwork, attracted to the artwork. Um, but the older I got, the more I was involved in the stories, the intrigue, the mystery, the surprise endings, the twists, the and even now, I really like an in-depth story that's complicated with many moving parts. And so it's progressed over the years. I've been touch and go with comics. I've had a pull list for most of my adult life. That is, a local comic shop will set aside comics they think you will like or things that you subscribe to, so you don't have to fight the masses, and that'll be there ready behind the counter for you anytime you can show up and then pick them up. So I've had
I'm
comic pull
surprised
lists.
there are actually comic shops still around.
Yeah, we've actually got two that I know of here in Kalamazoo. One that's kind of a large mainstream, another kind of a smaller, more
Kind of mom and pop sort of thing or something.
yeah, real cool people. So yes, I've collecting a lot of comics, reading. Like I say, mostly mainstream. DC and Marvel have been a little bit of Image, but lately I've been branching out, and we can talk about that. Why a person might branch out, or if they should.
Yeah, the funny thing is, as much as I enjoy comics, I haven't collected comics regularly since 2008. And I was sharing this with you a little bit, and it might seem kind of strange to some people, but I think you can appreciate where I was coming from. And that was, I just felt like the stories weren't really stories. Like, I feel like a story is something that has a beginning, middle, and end. And there's never an end in comics. It's just well, we did that thing, now let's do something else, and we're going to erase what we just did. It's like trying to keep up with an Etch-a-Sketch. And I didn't appreciate that. And I finally got to the point I just couldn't take it. And what did in the end was World War Hulk, which was a series where the Hulk previously in the series Planet Hulk had wound up on a planet, and he had been forced to be a gladiator.
Right.
But by the end of the book, spoiler alert, he ends up becoming the king of the planet. And it seems like a happy ending. The Hulk is now a ruler on the planet, and it seems like he's finally gotten the happy ending he's wanted. But then a year or two after that comes out, they bring out the World War Hulk, and they destroy his planet. And he comes back, and he's mad, and he wants to beat everybody up, kill people, he claims. And it ends up he just sort of throws a hissy fit, and that's the end of the story. And I just felt like it was like a wasted opportunity. They had the opportunity to end the Hulk there, because if there's any character in Marvel or DC that needs to be ended at some point, it's got to be the Hulk, because you can only have a destructive personality like that for so long before something happens that you just can't cover over anymore. So anyway, so that was my break from comics, but I've always been interested in them. I've always kept up with what's going on, and I've always appreciated comics. And I was just telling Brian that anymore when it comes to watching movies, unless it's a comic book movie, I really struggle to want to see it. So I just want to give kind of where I'm coming from, and so that's.
Yeah, that's a great point. I remember in the mid 90s, late 90s, I was saying, as soon as CGI, as soon as Hollywood gets into this comic book thing, we're going to have a lot of fun, because there are so many great stories, well thought out characters, plots. There's so much there's a great treasure trove to dig in with comic books. And I knew the moment Hollywood found out about it, it was going to be a hit. And here we are with, so many different movies and even series such as, Flash or Arrow.
Yeah. Yeah. But I've gotten tired of most of them. Like, I stopped watching the Arrow. I stopped watching about the third season. I stopped watching the Flash after like the second or third season. I just couldn't take them. They lost my interest. And the comics that I enjoyed so much, the inability to actually finish a storyline is part of the problem. Part of it is I think they've lost roots, their roots, their connection with who they are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They become loosely based on the characters. Then, like you're saying, there's no beginning, middle, and end. It's tough to find a part to sink your teeth into and say, yeah, this was a good story, because it never stops, like you're saying.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons I actually enjoyed. I've enjoyed manga over the years.
Yeah.
Is because they do have, except for maybe One Piece. One Piece is never going to end, I think. But there's so much that they could do with it, and they haven't. And I really feel like comics has lost itself. They haven't really. They're like Steve Rogers. They're in an era that they don't know how to adapt to.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, for me, like saying, having a pull list, I've had to back off of a number of titles. I guess we can jump into this one. So the last year or so, they've written. So Clark Kent has a son, Jonathan Kent, named after his earthly father.
Yep.
And this son has superpowers as well. And they really want to bring him to the forefront as Earth's Superman. And so they're beginning to write Clark out of the story somewhat in the canon and begin to have Jonathan come forward. I picked up the first 4 issues of Superman, Son of Kal-El. I thought the first 4 issues were strong. The artwork was great. The story was more based on political type, because I feel like the 80s and 90s, we had more of, what do you call it? Capitalist fat cats. We had the industrialist, the philanthropist, and they were the enemy. Whereas now it's more politically motivated. That small shift was maybe one deviation, but the last deviation is turning Jonathan Kent into a gay or bisexual man. And I just didn't think it felt necessary to the plot. It was more of an injection. Let's put this in your face. Let's make this a gay comic. And there's just been so many changes that I actually dropped the title and I stopped reading it.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of forces. The funny thing is that they did this with Doctor Who. They turned the Doctor into a woman. And the thing is, I don't really have a problem with that. And the reason why is he's an alien species. And they've talked about him being able to possibly, I don't know if you're familiar with Doctor Who or not, but they've talked about for years about him being able to regenerate and come back with no head and having weird regeneration possibilities. And, and really the thing is that the problem becomes, why are you doing it? Like what benefit does it bring to the character? Does it make sense to the story? And most of the time the answer to those questions is no. We're doing it because we can, and we're doing it because we're trying to use it to our advantage somehow, and that's very insulting. I don't know. I really dislike it. And look, there's also the challenge that you and I have, and that is that we have a completely different value system from that sort of thing. And so, not that people have to conform to my value system, but what will happen is that I will do what I've done and what other people like me have done, and that is I'll move further away from these things, the things I enjoyed. I can't enjoy them anymore because that's what's being was being focused on all the time. I don't know. My big problem with comics 15 years ago was that comics just didn't seem to be able to finish anything. It was never able to let a story finish and complete. And they were never able to do anything interesting because it's gotten less and less interesting the more they've pulled this whole thing. So and so has been killed off, yeah, but next year he's coming back. After a year or two, the character's coming back.
Right.
Because how can they not? They're making too much money off of them. So that was irritating from a fan standpoint.
Right.
But now with the focus on politics and everything else, I understand that when you have a medium like comics or any kind of entertainment medium, you're going to want to push whatever it is you feel that's important to you. And I never really fought that too much. It didn't bother me so much. But but now I see that, well, it didn't bother me, but man, the world's kind of crazy now.
Right.
Not from comics, but I think it's just a symptom of what's going on. I do want to say one thing about this drawing here. I'd already started a sketch, and really what I'm about to focus on is I was trying to refine the sketch, so then I could use it as a base for coming up with different types of costumes. And so that's what I'm doing right now. Is I've got a more refined sketch. I'm doing sort of a character design right now, where I'm gonna try to develop a new character here. So just wanted to throw that in there. But I got a degree in philosophy. I enjoy a discussion of morality. I discuss having my beliefs challenged.
Right.
And but I don't enjoy being told what I have to believe to be a good person. I don't enjoy being told that the things that I value are evil.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
That's what's going on.
Right.
In the name of not treating some bad, you treat everyone bad. Everyone gets treated bad, I guess is what I feel like sometimes.
Right. I think, yeah, because good and evil, the war between good and evil, a friction between good and evil has always been, the comic book, theme, especially for the heroes, for the mainline comics.
Right.
And it's in that gray. You have to work through the issues that you discover things about yourself, discover things about the characters. And
right.
Comics have always been a bit progressive, if you will, left-leaning. They've always pushed the envelope on certain issues, but they've, as far as I'm concerned, they've always been somewhat natural in their progression and integrated with society, as a whole. You take a temperature and most people feel this way or that way, and that might be reflected in the comics. They say that, the medium is the message, and there's the message of the medium, or whichever way it goes. But right. that both things, play a role. You're seeing art, you're reading art, and because it's monthly or bi-weekly or possibly even weekly, it's very, it's fresh, it's new, it's constantly being created. And so you're always having a very mixed, between politics and religion and thought. I mean, 60s comics dealt with apartheid. They dealt with, real issues. I mean,
racism and drugs and all sorts of things. Yeah.
Right. But like, as you were saying, comics now, I think they're kind of forcing a worldview that, if you don't accept every lifestyle, if you don't accept every thought, they're even blurring the lines of what good and evil is. I mean, for me, Superman is the quintessential, the best of what a person could be. He's right. The ultimate Boy Scout. He comes into a situation that is completely gray, and by the end of the comic or the series, he is navigated through this darkness, this grayness, and he's come out on top. And light has been shown to this bad situation, and something has been rectified, or people have been saved, and you always feel good about that.
Right. Right, absolutely. And one of the things that was really attractive to me about comics was the idealism
Mhm.
that existed ultimately. Because comics, let's not forget, ultimately originally was in a lot of ways, a lot of them were intended for children.
Mhm.
The superhero comics, especially, were really intended for children, and for children, a black and white world is what exists. A world and as a parent, you want to teach your kids a sense of morality, and you look for opportunities to do that. And when you find things that can help you do that,
Right.
it's great. And so comics were able to put a positive spin on things, and were very useful for um, helping kind of give kids positive role models. Even though they were fictitious, it was still like it was a positive role model because they represented the essence of what it was to be moral, and
Right.
to be concerned with your neighbor, to be concerned with other people. And now, what are they? What is I laugh at these TV shows, these comic book TV shows, where everybody's running around going, "I'm a hero, I'm a hero," and right, and
Mhm.
none of the characters seem to understand what the heck a hero is. How can you be a hero if you don't know what one is? And they don't know what it is because the things they do aren't even slightly heroic. Just take for this standpoint, like one day character A is a normal person living his or her life, and and but if something goes down, they are not going to be there. They're not going to pitch in, right? But suddenly they get superpowers, and now they're suddenly
Mhm.
suddenly they care. And what is this thing? Oh, it's my pencil. Okay. And it's like, wait a second. Where were you the day before yesterday? Where were you when
Right.
things were? How come now you're suddenly you know wanting to involve yourself? Well, because now you have superpowers, and there's no possible loss to you. Not really. I know that in the show they're always threatened with possibly dying or whatever, but I'm going to argue actually that the characters never come off as if they're worried that this could be fatal at any rate, and not until
Right.
the contracts run out, and then they get worried. But that just doesn't exist, and I mean the audience doesn't feel that. I'm not saying that was the way it was with old comics, but I am saying that by the time you finish reading an old comic, it would have an effect on you um, along those
Mhm.
lines.
Right. I guess it comes to my mind a couple of things. One, kind of the juxtaposition between, let's say, X-Men versus the Justice League. With the
Yeah,
Justice League, you always know who the good guys, who the protagonist is, and you know
right,
who the antagonist, you know who the villains are.
right.
Uh, it's very clean cut. It's in fact, I mentioned I just finished Justice League: The Last Ride. I think it was a 6 issue, kind of a sub series, miniseries, and it was just fantastic. It just really gave me everything that I like about comics: a clear, a clear story with twists and turns. Each person, each player of a member of the Justice League, bringing what they bring to the table and bringing it completely, and it was great. Versus the X-Men, is you really have a multiplicity of ideologies, or you know some are good, some are out for themselves.
Yeah,
They're mutants and they're trying to find their way, and they've banded together for a cause. That's what brought them together, is the cause. Versus, let's say, the Justice League, who they have this idea of saving the world, another cause, but also it's part of who they are. So I feel like that's a interesting juxtaposition. Like I'm saying, the X-Men, you never know what you're going to get. You got the Wolverine, the kind of the brooding, angry, muscle for hire almost, versus Cyclops, who's seen as a little bit more clean cut. Um,
right.
so you've got a real dynamic there in the X-Men series versus, let's say, like I said, the Justice League, who they've all, maybe the Flash is a jokester, whereas Batman's brooding, but they're all basically doing the same thing, that is saving the city.
Sure.
And I think that's what you get from the mainstream. You get more of the hero, the invention, the action, adventure, action, and sci-fi. And we can transition to speak a little bit about the independent comics, who kind of branch out into more crime, mystery, horror, sci-fi, a little bit more fantasy.
Sure.
And I think you're getting a lot of interesting stories right now from the indie comics. I read a book out of Image called Middle West that I thought was just amazing. My wife liked it. I liked it. It really was a nice coming of age style. The dynamics really between the father and the son initially. The son leaves home, kind of launches out into the world, and he finds kind of a troop of misfits, if you will, that kind of helps him through. And as he kind of tumbles forward through this story, but the artwork was just astonishing and aesthetically pleasing. It was colorful and delightful. It wasn't very gritty. It was more, kind of based in old world kind of styles. But it was just a fantastic indie comic. And I've mentioned it before to a number of my friends and family, and maybe some have read it, maybe some haven't. But I just had to depart a lot from the mainstream comics. Like I'm saying, there's I'm just going to say it. There's a lot of gay characters that they're just flooding the industry with gay characters. We've got like Tim Drake, one of the Robins. They've moved him into that category. Jonathan Kent, I've mentioned. Aquaman, they turned him into a young black gay man. The Becoming Aquaman, the series is called. Batwoman, even Harley Quinn. They really made her into a gay character and really pushed that even in very animated and younger. And so, like we've mentioned, that comics are aimed sometimes at the young. They're really pushing this story of this theme, and it's kind of sad.
The problem isn't having gay characters. The problem is thinking that you have to make every character or every other character gay,
Right?
And that is what
Right.
people are looking for. I don't think that people have to have, like, if you're gay and you're reading a comic, I don't think you have to have a gay character to enjoy the comic.
No.
Maybe some people feel like they have to, but I don't know. I don't think you have to do that. And if you've got characters who have been traditionally straight, you get Bobby Drake, who was Iceman, was traditionally straight, and they made him
Right.
gay for no apparent reason. I mean, he was practically, I think, at one point, like a womanizer almost.
Yeah.
Not that that's any better. Like I have my own issues with sort of like the exploitation of women I had with comics. That was one of my problems with it. So I've always had some problems with comics, but you have these characters have these standard the way they've been for years, since
Right.
their initial coming out in comics. But you're erasing all that for no particular reason.
Right.
And you're why not just create a character that the way you want them from the get-go? Why
Right.
not do that? And I don't know. It's just there's a lack of authenticity, I think, to a lot of it.
Right.
And look, less people think that we're picking on gay people. The fact of the matter is that it's not just about gay people. It's not just about this or that. It's not just about liberal viewpoints, because I have problems with some conservative viewpoints as well. Like
Right.
And like the problem of the alt-right is like the really right-wing guys who tend to be anti-Semitic. Well, I certainly don't agree with those guys. right? It, you know, I just wish that if you are going to use comics to express yourself, your viewpoints, that you do it a little more sensibly, in a more
Right.
interesting way, and that instead of being lazy and just saying, well, we've got like 10 characters who've got a 60-year history, let's turn some of them gay, and we'll turn Captain America into a fascist, make him,
Right.
join. He's always been a member of Hydra, whatever that nonsense was about. And, I mean, just put a little more effort into it. Like, I
Right.
don't know. And Hollywood, as bad as they do things sometimes, they actually know how to tell stories. They're actually sometimes more capable of making comic books more interesting than the people who are in the industry to make them interesting. So I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling a lot. Like, I'm not really connecting any points here, but just so everybody has a little Rachmanis on me and maybe a little mercy, I am drawing. I'm trying to draw and I'm trying to talk and walk and chew bubblegum
Right.
here at the
Right.
same time. So, but
Yeah. Like
ahead.
you're saying, my problem isn't the social issues. It's like percentage, like representation. If a small percentage of a population believes something, then it should be reflected in comics as a small percentage, versus an ever increasing in your face percentage isn't quite representative of I think the world we live in. Most people are going to their work, they're paying taxes, they're living their life, hopefully becoming better people and learning to be better. And I mean, if we're just going to say like preservation of the species, that a heterosexual is the optimum, from an evolutionary standpoint, I suppose. And if we're going to talk about, like a platonic, idealistic form, heterosexuals, should be, somewhat at least prevalent and not shameful or bad, or, we shouldn't be, looked down upon. And the same thing with the homosexual type motif that they're pushing. I feel like it's a little bit too much too soon. Creating new characters might be the way to go, rather than transitioning characters. Like, I got a great example: the Golden Age Green Lantern, Alan Scott.
Yeah.
He was married to Rose. For whatever reason, that didn't pan out. There was some mystery there. I think she becomes Thorn, I believe. But
Right.
he later gets involved with Harley Quinn, one of the earlier iterations of Harley Quinn, and they have a pretty decent marriage. In fact, Green Lantern's second series, around issue, I want to say 110, 120, early 100s, there's a conversation between Alan Scott's daughter, who
Jade.
has powers because of his connection. Yeah, Jade, Jennifer Hayden. She's having a conversation with the now modern Green Lantern at the time, Kyle Rayner, and saying that when Alan Scott was married to Harley Quinn, that was the best. He was happy. She was so happy that he was, he had a great marriage and a great life, and she was so happy for him. And then fast forward to today, the 80th anniversary Green Lantern comes out, and one of the first stories is Alan Scott saying that he has never felt comfortable, and he's always had these gay inclinations, and now he must, walk that path. And so, just from a continuity standpoint, I mean, you see the Golden Age Green Lantern seems to be somewhat happy in a relationship. A few years later, his daughter even remarks how she noticed that he was fantastically happy in this marriage. Whatever, issue is, the Harley Quinn's always been a strange character, but that he had a modicum of happiness, right? I mean, she noticed it. She was so happy for him. And then fast forward to today, and they're going to wipe that all away and say that he's always felt uncomfortable and now he must walk a different path. I just felt that wasn't true to the character.
Yeah, and you can have that happen like once or twice, but have it 50 times in a row, that becomes a little hard to swallow. But in some ways, I feel like let's look at the origins of comics. Like, what were comics really kind of about? And if you look at a lot of the early comics from the Golden Age, those were about people suffering in a very difficult time. You had a lot of immigrants who got into the early comics, a lot of Jewish immigrants who
Right.
were being persecuted, fled from lands of persecution, and it was very much an anti-bully sort of mentality. And
Correct.
you know, I think sometimes people have the perception that the issues of yesterday aren't the same issues we have today. I don't know. I think that we still do. I think that what we're talking about right now is an example of bullying that's going on. But I think that even worse is that what are comics? What who are the why are heroes heroes? What makes them heroes? What issues are really important? What issues should we care about universally? And I think this is part of the problem, is that universally, what should we be caring about? Because I because bullying is so much of a universal issue, you know. But we're, so America is so fractured right now,
Mm.
and the problem is I don't think that there exists in America right now a common set of values. You know,
Right.
forget religious values and everything else. Values of any kind. I don't think there's people have anything really in common when you talk about, you know, what they value and what those values are and how they came to those values. And I think it's proving to be a very big problem. And you know, comics is just a symptom of the bigger problem. I don't know exactly what the solution is. You know, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create my own comics and characters that harken more towards a time when you had that idealism,
Mm.
the hope, um, a moral center. I want to create characters with a moral center. I want to make sense. Uh, you know how they're getting involved and what they're doing, and I want there to be a connection there. Um, but um, you know, it's kind of hard to do because I think it's very hard for people to consider something that isn't really their own viewpoint. And I don't know. But I do feel like that something's got to change. I'll tell you something that I had an atheist philosophy professor who I really liked in college, and his name was Dr. Barnhart. Dr. Barnhart, he had a couple nice things that he said that I really liked. One of the things that he liked to say was he'd say, I appreciate dialogue and I want to engage in it. I want you to take my ideas and fill them full of lead and just destroy them if you can.
Mhm.
You know, fill them with holes. He said, because I'd rather you kill my ideas than you kill me. And the problem with what's going on uh, in America, at the very least, is that people are turning away from dialogue, from exercising free speech, from talking to one another like people, not shouting at each other, shouting at each other. And what happens from that is that eventually um, both parties feel like they're not being heard. And so what happens? Well, if talking doesn't work, you're left with your fists at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And there's got to be um, a better way to deal with the problems than to uh, turn to, you know, using your fists. And so Dr. Barnhart, I mean, I always kept that in mind. I always thought that what he said really made a lot of sense, and it's something that I've always, you know, believed in myself, is that I would rather someone um, uh, you know, dismantle my argument, my my beliefs or whatever else, rather than bringing harm to someone else. And that's how I've always felt. So even though I have a very firm, my point is, even though I have a very firm moral standpoint that I'm coming from, I'm not afraid to be confronted and to be challenged on that.
Right.
But I put this together every year, so prepare for an argument. But it's better to have an argument with your words and with your thoughts than it is to have an argument with your fists. And I just fear that that's the direction we're going in. And it's some of the things that's lacking is hope. Idealism, you have to have hope. And if you don't have hope, you can't have idealism. And I think comics was good about being in a very negative space where there seemed to be no hope, and then creating these characters that were built as symbols to give hope.
Right. Yeah, taking problems that might be a little far-fetched or outside the pale or not something you would encounter, but making them seem simple, and the hero, the protagonist would navigate through them, and you develop hope, you develop faith in humanity or something like that. Now,
Right.
Have you ever heard the idea that Malcolm X was more aggressive, and Martin Luther King Jr. was a little more passive, more oration and speaking,
Right.
and how maybe Magneto was more the aggressor through
Right.
force, and he was kind of aligned with Malcolm X, and the idea that Professor X was more like Martin Luther King Jr. You ever heard that idea that maybe that's
Yeah,
that was
I heard Stan Lee talking about that
okay.
in an interview. He was
Yeah, I just, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking, some people find force, as their method, and some people find maybe, debate or, some kind of rational approach.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when people don't want to have a rational discourse on it, and I feel like, look, if you watch, for example, TV, and you kind of pay attention to what they've done, a lot of the values we have in America, feminist values, right? Positive outlooks on people who have different sexual orientations, various different values that people hold as being good. Those things were brought to us through the medium of television and movies, very subtly over a long period of time, and until now. And now it's just like nobody's pretending anymore.
Right.
But at the very least, the approach had the virtue of being thoughtful in some way. Like they would give you very thoughtful things to consider in the shows, and you could contemplate and think about it. They had great movies that suddenly cause you to think about things you normally wouldn't think about. And I just, it's just too bad that we don't have that right now. Fortunately.
As kind of a maybe more philosophical point, kind of post-Enlightenment, we seem to kind of lay at the feet of Hobbes and Locke this idea of the transition from cultural duties to more personal rights. And there was some kind of a transition there where people thought more of Plato's Republic, how what is good was good for all people, versus more Aristotelian kind of idea of the sovereignty of maybe an individual. And it seems like America has a very difficult time kind of seeing the difference between when the sovereign individual should make a stand versus when we should kind of defer to, let's say, the good of the masses. And like I say, some people kind of put that at John Locke's feet, or even Thomas Hobbes, this transition from duty to right. Is that something you're familiar with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I studied Locke and Hobbes in college, and um, I always found that what you just said always sounded a lot like to me. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, which is really a Jewish perspective,
Mm,
right? That community comes first.
right.
Is really the individual is important, but never at the expense of the community. Ultimately, the community is more important than the individual. And you know, in Locke, we get the social contract, which is important because I think he meant it as a way of explaining why there are moral systems. But I think what it really does is, um, more than anything else, is it just lays out why moral systems can work. you know,
Mm.
to a certain extent, not permanently, but for a little while they can work. Um, you'll have to refresh me on kind of what. So yes, I am familiar with that. Yes.
Right. It's just been something I've been thinking about lately as I hear, I have a right to this, I have a right to that, I have a right, I have a right. It's kind of the refrain we hear from, you know,
Well,
different
both sides.
social,
Here's
yeah, both sides.
okay,
Both sides.
here's what I'm point out. I don't think I'm picking on one side or the other. I find that the same complaints I have against people on the left, I have similar complaints to people on the right.
Mm,
I don't think anybody's doing any nuanced thinking is part of the problem, and I don't think that um, and I don't think that they're uh, probably because people think and talk in terms of um, rhetoric, in
right.
terms of sound bites. That's how we think nowadays. We think in terms of sound bites, and when you get into a conversation using sound bites, it's very hard to be very thoughtful. But yeah, so I think it's a criticism of both sides, and that's what I find very disappointing. There is no one side that's got it right, and so that then is a problem that also needs to be solved. Both sides
Right.
should work on
Right. I just think the left right now are a little bit more vocal and in your face with certain issues. So it's easier to pick up on it, but you're absolutely correct. I mean, the imperialism of the right sometimes, I mean, they seem to love war, seem to profit from it. And, here we are, we're in, hundreds of nations all over the world, and to what benefit, I'll leave that up to someone else. But,
right,
what are our sons and daughters doing marching all over the world when clearly we have issues here at home to spend time and energy on?
right, sure. But it's also the way that both sides interact with ideas. If you look
Right.
at um, the way they kind of shout at each other. But let's take, for example, the presidents, right?
Okay.
Um, President Obama, President Trump, and then we got President Biden. They just take turns throwing the same accusations and insults at each other.
Right.
And let's talk about COVID now. I know there are a lot of people who have very passionate beliefs, either for vaccine or against vaccine. But my question, my question really is, um, why is this such a controversial issue? Why is there so much? Why are people so vehemently of one position or another? Like, if COVID is an issue, then why are we um, why are we arguing about wearing masks or not, or taking the what's it called, the injections? And if it's not a problem, then why are we forcing it? You know, and how do we know if it's a problem or not? Well, I'll be honest with you right now. If you're like me, I don't have a degree in science and medicine. I don't have an ability I can't look at the scientific data and know whether or not this stuff is safe or not safe. There is a limitation that I have as an individual, and and so what I'm relying on is expert opinion. I have to, in some extent, do what an expert tells me. But the experts have drawn their lines according to political parties, right? So what do? I just accept. I believe the experts of my political party, right? And do I do the research to try to find out what the answer is? But I'm not a scientist. I can't go back and I can't do the experiments that are supposed to have been done to verify, one, that COVID is a real threat, and two, that the vaccine works. I can't do. I just don't have that capacity. I don't have the millions of dollars it took them to do the research and figure it out. And so it's in situations like this where if either party cared about their constituents, this is the part where they go, you know what? Let's let bygones be bygones for a little while, and let's actually, try to figure this thing out and do the best we can to give the real information. And that doesn't go on. And this is the overall problem. And both sides have the tendency to do this, which is, hey, your guy is scum, but my guy is like an angel. He's practically divine. And the funny thing is if you talk to any of those people any other day of the week and you ask their opinion about politicians, almost everybody universally believes you can't trust a politician unless it's your guy. Then suddenly he's the exception. And so, I mean, I just see this as being a problem. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I have a degree in media and broadcasting, so I got to be involved in news, and then I interned at PBS and did some fun things. And just to see the ethics of this situation, the way it's presented, I think America was kind of founded on debate, lively debate by a multiplicity of experts.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we're not getting that experience as the American citizenry. That there's a couple of mainstream voices, and if you disagree with them, then you must have a problem. You must not believe in science, whatever that means, to believe in science. If it's empirical, why do I have to believe? But the tone has gotten strange. The taglines, have gotten in strange. But I think a lively debate on juxtapositioning experts would do a lot of people some good to hear the other side. And the censorship has just been terrible. I just think it's not the answer. I mean, everybody knows when they picked up National Enquirer that they were getting, salacious type information, TMZ.
Right. That was part of the fun of it.
Yeah, Bat Boy found in cave. You kind of knew, take it with a grain of salt. I feel like now the powers that be, think we can't be trusted to navigate those waters. We can't be trusted to find out what's true and what's not, and we must be spoon-fed information. And I just think that's gotten very, very problematic for me. I do not like the censorship. I'd like to hear multiple experts. I'd like to hear them present their case in the public, court of, in kind of a public setting in the town square.
Yeah. And at the very least, we should be able to discuss it, recognizing with humility what the extent of our knowledge.
Right.
Like I think that you have to be humble and recognize that maybe you're not smart enough to know everything. And you're not smart enough to be able to properly grasp all information. And what I'm trying to say is that when I decided whether or not I was going to get a shot, and I ended up getting the shots, what I ended up doing was I went to people I trusted, and those are the people that I listened to. And that was the best I could do, because it is such a hard hard question in a lot of ways. I recognize that I don't have the ability or interest um, to form a medical opinion on this kind of stuff. But at the same time, I do have the ability to hear what others have to say and be convinced about which most likely the most correct answer. I think that's what you're saying, is that if I can hear the sides, bring out their wares, then maybe I can at least come to some sort of informed decision. Informed decisions aren't necessarily right decisions. Informed decisions are it just means that you made the decision based on information, not on your heart or something.
It's hard or difficult to give consent to something that you don't have the full information on.
It is.
A quick production note. Do you have a camera that's available? The YouTube, they're asking if looks like your camera's not on.
Oh, I turned my camera off.
Okay.
So while I was drawing, I didn't think people wanted to look at the top of my head.
Fair enough.
Well, it looks like. Oh, go ahead.
I just said we did get one question. Looks like, don't you think they've made characters too dark, which affects the attraction people originally had for the heroes?
Yeah, I think that there are some characters who made sense to make them dark, like Batman. Batman was a dark character to begin with, but but Superman, no. Why would you make Superman or Wonder Woman or the Flash? Most of the DC characters were not made to be dark characters. They were made to be very bright and heroic characters, positive, idealistic, maybe naive in certain situations. Batman was always made to be dark, but he was dark for the sake of, he had hope that through his darkness he could return light to Gotham, and I was expressing this to someone. Nobody necessarily agrees with me, but I always believe Batman understood his role to be temporary. That there's no point in him being Batman if he isn't able to accomplish change. What change is it that he wants to accomplish? He recognizes that law is important, that we have to have laws to live by and govern by, because in Metropolis laws work. People are happy and safer. And you don't have to worry about people with in spandex showing up and disturbing your day, or the things breaking that are on hoists and falling and squishing you. But other than that, life is great. And so you have that reality that Batman knows that Gotham could be saved. It could become like that. The problem is that all the cops and the politicians are all bought off, and in the only way that he's going to be able to affect change to where it gets back to being like a Metropolis is that he has to dress up in a suit and beat people up at night, and right, and that's Batman. But Batman has to recognize this can't go on forever. And now what's been pointed out to me is that, well, the whole point of the Bat family is so that when Batman goes down, someone else can continue the fight. I think in a limited sense that might be true, but I think in reality what's happened is that DC has been around for so long, they keep creating characters that are interesting aside from Batman, and they started lumping them together, and so it's confused what Batman's purpose is. Batman's purpose is to actually end the problems of Gotham, and he uses dark means to do that in the hope that he won't have to do that forever. And I think Nolan's Batman movies actually did a good job of bringing that to light. Was that I think that he represented what Batman really saw himself as, and that's why in the third movie he was able to walk away from Gotham and have a life with Catwoman. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think some characters are essentially a darker character, like I mentioned Wolverine earlier. The series Old Man Logan. If you looked at any of those issues in the last few years, they were bloody, they were gritty, they were like the Punisher. You expect the Punisher to be gritty, whereas let's say Spider-Man, he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's a little bit more light-hearted, swinging above, the crime below. So I think some characters it kind of works for, and other characters it isn't as natural, and maybe having a deviation is good to have the full spectrum.
Right. Well, and that's what makes it interesting when you try to gang them up and put them together into a group, and they have they have at their core a similar ideology, but at the same time they have different perspectives on the similar ideology. Batman and Superman both want the law to function and continue to function in spite of their existence. That's why Superman doesn't kill. Superman doesn't kill because if he started killing, then he would be saying that he was an authority above the law. And Superman recognizes the law is actually important, and he doesn't want to do that. And so he does his best not to kill. And I think, and also he's powerful enough that most of the time that's possible.
Right.
Batman also believes in the value of the law. He just, in his situation, it doesn't have the ability to function, and that's where he comes in. So he has to come at the same. He has the same value, but he has from a different perspective. And that's what I was saying, that there doesn't seem to be any shared value amongst a lot of Americans anymore. Maybe people worldwide, is that you can have a shared value. For example, you can have the value of an individual. And that we were all created in God's image, and that God created all men equal, right? These are the foundations. The foundation of America was the belief that all men were created equal. And so, but that value, looked at from different means, different people have acted on that value in a different way, and then eventually people realized that the value they had wasn't being expressed fully so long as slavery existed, so long as women didn't have the right to vote and participate. There were a lot of injustices that the value of all human beings be equal in value. I keep using this word value. I hate it, but it's very monotonous. But the point is that everyone is equal in the sight in God's eyes, and in the fact that we all are human beings, and therefore we all have common rights. We have common rights because we're all ultimately equal. That's why I can have a hamburger. A cow and I do not have equal rights. We don't have equal value. A cow has a lesser value than I do. And I think that when people realize that the value of all men being equal was not being expressed as it should be in America, this is what led to the freeing of the slaves and the civil rights movement. But now what's happened is that people just sort of meander around and go, well, I guess the lesson of history is we should complain about stuff we don't like. And I don't really know that was the lesson we were really meant to learn. I think we were meant to learn to have values that we could, moral principles that we as a society agree to, and then act on those things to be as consistent as we can with their expression.
Right.
And when that doesn't happen, then you have, the situation you have today. So anyway, I'll let you get into your final word. It's a little after 10 o'clock. We've been doing this. We're a little over an hour now.
Whoa.
And I appreciate everybody who's tuned in and listened. This is our first episode, or as I call it, issue 1. And as we get kind of used to this, I'm sure that what we do and how we do it and what we talk about will change. I would like to know, did you enjoy watching me draw while we're talking? Would you prefer I just stop drawing and just focus on talking? I could certainly feel for myself that I was sort of losing my points here and there, because I'd get fascinated by a line I was doing. Oh, that's really nice. And I go, oh, what was I talking about? So,
right.
Let me know about that. And Brian, what do you have to say?
No, this is fun. Kind of an introductory type of prototype of like I'm saying, I think it's good for Torah-based people, ethical people to venture into cultural issues and
Sure.
begin to kind of shed light on what's good and what's bad and help people. Maybe people are wondering, hey, should I read a comic book? Should I not? Or are they all just for kids? Or, there's an array of comics, and they really cover the gambit. I think there's a lot of great philosophies. Some are written at the collegiate level. Some have very little words and maybe all pictures or artwork.
Yeah.
Dealing with cultural issues, personal issues. I would like to see more rooted ethics, like you're saying, this idea of maybe divine law versus maybe conventional law. Some people see law as a convention, and we could even put stand-ins for like maybe Superman is divine, and seeing that law as very hard and fast versus Batman, who kind of works around the law, through the law, and even sometimes circumvents the law. But
Right.
Is law convention? I think our culture really needs to look itself in the mirror and begin to say, what are the universal ethics? What can we all
Right.
agree to? Where's the overlap? And maybe spend
Right.
more time on those, and maybe leave the fringe topics for fringe conversations.
Sure. Totally agree. Well, this is Overthinking Comics. We've probably overthought a couple of things. Maybe some things you didn't really want us to overthink on, and we overthought, and we maybe overspoke. Who knows? But it was a lot of fun talking, and I always enjoy thoughtful conversations. I enjoy comics as well, and I don't know. I thought it was really fun. I'm really happy to be doing something like that. I wanted to do something like this for a long time. Um, you know, I've got Brian's a Ben Noach, and I'm Jewish. I don't know how many of you realize that or know what a Ben Noach is, or maybe don't even know what a Jew is. But at any rate, we're coming from a very similar standpoint from an ideology and perspective. Um, Although you can't really say Judaism is monolithic. It's not. But uh, I enjoy combining two things that I really enjoy. I enjoy comics and I love Torah, and it's fun to put those things together. And also, I obviously have I enjoy philosophy and I enjoy examining ideas. And I also obviously enjoy talking because I keep saying I'm ending it and I'm not going to end it, but I am going to end it now. Now I'm definitely going to end it. I have no takes backs, nothing. We're going to end it. And if you want to follow me at all, you can check out Redbubble. Uh, I have my you look for HLPME. That is my username because when I created my account, I was kind of messing around and joking with myself because my initials spell HLP. You put an ME at the end of it, it's help me. I don't know what I was thinking, but now I'm stuck with it. So that's how you can find me on Redbubble. That's where you'll see like some of the characters I do. They're on T-shirts and hats and everything like that. I'm also working on developing my website. You'll see that soon. And this is on New Heroes Comic, the YouTube channel. If you've got some art questions, you can send them to me, and I'll try to answer those and do a demonstration for you. And other than that, my name's Hillel, and this has been Brian. So see you next week.